Well, welcome to the Shoot It Straight podcast.
Yay.
We're back. Today we're going to be talking a lot about the sport of golf fitness and what that really means. I think it's important for us to define that for people and give them an idea of some different types of people that are in the golf fitness world, right? So beginners all the way up to pro athletes and everywhere in between. We'll kind of take a deep dive into talking through, and by we, I mean you, since this is your level, your part of expertise.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's important for us to kind of define what it is, how golf fitness can help people, and, you know, some common problems and things that you see with your clients. So why don't you kick it off and let's kind of just dive right in.
Take it away and dive into the...
Well, yeah, I think, you know, we defined golf fitness before, but why don't we give our definition of what golf fitness is, like a super high level, and then maybe start going into, you know, if anybody has never trained for golf fitness before, like what does that look like for anybody who's new to it?
So it's crazy, you know, I meet people out on the driving range or out on the course all the time, and my bag even says, like, my name, it says golf fitness, and still no one really knows like what that really means. I still think it's relatively new. On Instagram, you're starting to see like every pro gets into the gym, men, women, the guys on the Champions Tour, they're all getting in the gym. So they're all doing some form of golf fitness, right? I think it ends up, what's out there can sometimes look too much like we are just trying to mimic the golf swing in one way or another. We're trying to grab a band, or we're balancing on one leg, trying to make some crazy looking swing, but it's not just all about mimicking the golf swing, right? It is a fitness program to make our body better at the game of golf, a better athlete and a better human overall.
Well, yeah, it's complementary. Like,
absolutely,
we're trying to correct people's incorrections, or, you know, right their wrongs.
Yes.
Right their wrongs. Give them things that they're not doing. I mean, because it's like any sport, there's so much repetition in golf. It's literally, I mean, again, you can correct me here, but, you know, you're swinging the golf club over and over and over again. You're not switching sides. Like there's one side, you know?
Yeah. So by nature, it is there's imbalances in the sport. We only swing one direction. You're not, you know, you're not a switch hitter. You know, you're swinging the club one way, you're putting it one way every single time. So we're going to have some natural imbalances, and that's fine. But when we train in the gym, we do things on both sides. We try to correct some imbalances. We try to correct some mobility restrictions, some strength deficits, and also training for power, which is a little bit different than what you see. Your normal people at the gym, when they're just, you know, hitting their bicep curls or something like that, they don't really have the goal of power and mobility in mind that a golfer should. Getting into the golf swing is a very, very unique position. You've been there. It's different.
Super awkward.
Yeah, and if you've never done it, it's not very natural, and it's a movement that goes from 0 to 100 or 120 or 140, depending on what kind of player you are. You're moving pretty fast, you know. So and it's a very challenging position to be in, and to be in a powerful position when you actually make contact with the golf ball and stay in balance. So there's a few things that we need right there. We need balance, we need mobility, we need strength, and we need power. So when I'm out there on the range or something like that, or I run into somebody, they typically think that golf fitness, you know, I need a lot of flexibility. That is like the number one term people say, flexible. And I'm going to talk about flexibility and mobility here in a second. And they also say I need a lot of core work. So at the basis of it, when I hear someone say that and they're not like really in like the fitness world, my mind goes, okay, they're thinking flexibility. That means like, can I reach down and touch my toes? Can I stretch my hamstrings? And then core work, they probably are talking about, oh, I need my 6-pack abs, right? But in golf, we need a lot more than that. You can have those things, but we need a lot more.
So wait, back up for me. People think that they need a 6-pack, like that's really what they're after, or are they talking about they think in the rotation part of the swing that they need to be shredded? Is that where it's coming from?
I don't think they think they need a 6-pack, but I mean, I definitely, you know, they need the core strength, and I kind of want to define the core a little more of what
Let's define that. Let's
define the core. So, I mean, I want you to think of your entire trunk, right? Like, so like right below your chest, like, you know, rib cage area, right? A little bit lower than that, where it's going to start. 360 degrees.
Torso, so
you do have a lot of torso. Actually, you have a lot of legs too. So I don't know. You're kind of a spidery type human being. But anyway, so it's like from here to below your glutes. Like, so I'm thinking glutes up to like below the rib cage and 360 degrees. Hips, pelvis, obliques, abdominals, erectors, your back, like all that kind of stuff, like is definitely like a part of your core that you need for the golf swing.
Yeah.
And crunches aren't going to do that for you.
Yeah.
They're fine. Do your crunches if you want. But we need a lot more. We need core stability. We need power. We need our pelvis to work well, like tilt in both directions to transfer energy. And so many things need to go well in the core for us to have a good golf swing and a powerful one, sequenced well, all that kind of stuff. So core strength, not just your abs, all that stuff.
Okay.
So that's how I define the core. And I mean, you're working the core doing squats, deadlifts, lunges, rotational movements, all that kind of stuff. Your cats and dogs, your bird dogs, things like, you call them cat cows. She hates it when I call them cats and dogs. But
I mean, whatever.
but anyways.
Cat cow for those of us that know the correct word.
Anyways, so that kind of stuff is all meant to work your core. And then plenty of rotation because golf is a rotational sport. And then the next terms, like I kind of want to define here just to, put that out there. Flexibility versus mobility. Right. So flexibility being like the more passive, like letting your muscle lengthen, like again, like that, like I said, like reach down, touch your toes, like your hamstrings, like, and then holding it. That would be if you have like flexible hamstrings. And man, I'm gonna tell you this right now, you're gonna have tight hamstrings for the most part, and they're probably not gonna go away. You're just gonna have to learn how to live with that. The way we learn how to live with that is through adequate mobility, which is going to be able to take the joint through its full range of motion using the muscles like around the joint. So like, moving your hips and things like that, like hinging into a deadlift. That's more of like hip mobility versus like hamstring flexibility, right? If you're tight in your hamstrings, most men are, and I'm just gonna say that because I'm also a man, like you feel the tightness, but we want to work more on the mobility in the golf swing, right? If you take it to the back of the golf swing, if you go to the top of your back swing, there's tons of ankle mobility, hip mobility, thoracic spine mobility, cervical, your neck, all that stuff needs to be very mobile to be in a good position at your golf swing. And if any of it's breaking down, you're going to have some things that go on that look a little funky, but you're just going to have to either fix it or learn how to work around it.
Well, yeah, and it's like we've discussed this before, but not everyone's golf swing, of course, looks different, which is totally fine. Also, everyone's anatomy is very different. We just talked about that. People have long limbs, people have shorter limbs. People, again, have different mobility in different parts of their body, depending on what sports that they've played too. I remember like feeling like, oh yeah, baseball swing, no big deal. Completely like whatever completely weird, different. Central nervous system things that we have going on. I think it's like super important to highlight that because, to your point, we're talking, I think golf fitness, a big component of that is working with what you've got and helping correct and, or, supplement the things that you've already got going for you and like trying to enhance and improve things, bit by bit.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and some of the best players on earth, John Rahm's the big one out there. His swing looks different because he was born with a club foot. So he's got some different stuff that he learned how to do really well. Now, for us normal humans, for us not freaks of nature like John Rahm, it helps us to like work to get in the best possible positions because we don't have his talent. He's like has some raw talent, right? Like it's going to help us to like help fix our body a little bit more.
Right.
Right. So that's definitely where the sport or the business of golf fitness, came to be because we're going to help and golf itself and the sport of golf has just blown up in the last few years. So I think where you're seeing all of it rise together, right? Like golf and golf fitness is coming up together.
Well, I think it's important to talk about that. And can we talk about that for just a second? Like at what point did golfers become athletes? Cause like really it's the John Daly's of the world, which again, like we're talking about the exceptions to the rule, right? Like we probably don't encourage most clients to get out there and drink beer and smoke cigarettes on the golf course. But again, like everyone's going to be out there being like, well, this guy can do it really well. Like, yes. Yep. But he's among other people too, just even back in like the 80s or whatever, like are they athletes? Were they athletes? I mean, I'm just kind of spitballing here, but yeah. It's changed a lot. If you look at like the body compositions of some of these guys, again, like they're getting to the gym. I don't think they were doing the gym thing like a decade ago, two decades ago.
No, not like they do now. Gary Player is like, I think he's in his 80s now. Like he's kind of the guy that still like is out there like doing push-ups, still showing some of his fitness stuff off. John Daly is like, a lot of the things when I post on Instagram, I do get people that write me my DMs and they're saying, well, John Daly didn't need that. John Daly did really well, but we don't know what he could have done. He had so much talent. Right. Like maybe he would have done better. Maybe he would have done worse. Who knows?
Totally.
We'll never know. But I do think, obviously, if you're talking about golf, the name Tiger Woods is going to come up somewhere along the lines, right? And he was really the one that showed up, and everyone was like, oh, there's an athlete here. There's
Yes.
there's a real guy that works out and takes care of himself, and not the other guys didn't. But it's like when Tiger showed up, the obviously, I mean, the sport of golf changed, the popularity boomed, and he just looked, and he was just different.
Oh, he put in the hours, and some
Yep.
of those hours were the fitnessing,
Yep.
the
And
self-care, the recovery. Like, he was doing all of that stuff before it was like, now it's like super sexy, but it
Right.
wasn't necessarily sexy back then.
He famously said after a tournament one time that he wasn't feeling his glutes fire, and people were always like, they look back, they're like, what the hell is this guy talking about? We're playing golf, we're not out here squeezing our glutes, and that later on that may have led to his back pain and things like that. But he knows how to use his glutes. That's where you get all your power in your golf swing.
Okay. So let's start talking about that. I want to talk about the golf fitness side of things and the common things that you see with the different types of athletes. So maybe walk us through, like, we'll just call them client avatars for now, right? Like, maybe we have a few different buckets that you have in mind. You have beginner, you have weekend warrior, you have the senior players. Talk us through what that looks like and, each person's sort of like beginning journey into golf fitness.
Sure. So let's just say the most common are going to be, guys around my age, 30s, 40s, a little bit older too. And they're going to need much more mobility. They're usually relatively strong, right? And then they're going to need a little more power. They're going to need to learn how to take that strength and move it faster, but also the mobility to take the golf swing through its full range of motion. So that's typically with men is going to be mobility. Next up, let's say, and then that goes up seniors, they're still going to need more mobility. They're going to also probably need a little more strength and power. Juniors already move pretty well. They're younger. They haven't sat around at a desk for 20 years to start ruining their bodies like adults have. So they still probably move pretty well, especially if they're active and they get out and play quite a few sports. So they're trying to put it all together besides the mobility piece. Like they're going to start developing more strength, which when I was growing up, they didn't want you to lift weights till you were like going through puberty. And they talked about doing this whole thing where they checked like bones in your wrist to see if you had grown enough before you started lifting weights. So I started lifting weights when I was 14. Now you see people lifting very young. I mean, I think one of my favorite guys to follow is Squat University, and he shows like, how old are they? Like 5 years old?
He's 5, 6, 9-year-olds.
Like doing like Olympic like cleaning jerks and stuff like that. So it's pretty fantastic. And so they've kind of debunked that, so kids can start lifting younger, and they can do other types of resistance training. They can jump, they can just move fast and things like that. And that's going to give them a response, a stimulus to be stronger and also just more explosive. And they'll just keep developing that as they grow up. But I think, the juniors, you want to expose them to a lot of different things so they can learn all this stuff, different types of movements, different challenges and things like that. Whether it be like sprinting really hard, jumping side to side, throwing a ball around, lifting some weights, learning how to squat correctly, just really kind of honing in their patterns. And that's probably what juniors need the most. Women always usually have a pretty good mobility, right? They are just much more mobile than a man is. Could use a little bit more strength, most of them. I'm just speaking generally, right? Like some women like you and a lot of people are strong as shit. But generally speaking,
women are averse to strength training, for sure. Yeah.
And it helps them in a million different other ways too, besides the sport of golf. It helps everyone. But so and then just power. So like that's typically the one that people don't understand. Like, and then there's the difference between strength and power, right? Like strength is just our ability to kind of move a weight around. Your power is like how fast can you move that weight. So, and your weight can also just be your body weight, right? So that's one thing we want all of them to learn how to do is just move more explosively. And again, like that's not necessarily like, it's not necessarily like muscle mass training, right? Like when you're getting stronger, you're getting more powerful. It's also just like brain training. It's like getting our brain to recruit these muscle fibers pretty fast. So that's why we need to train all facets of that. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to look just like the golf swing, but I do encourage like every level of athlete out there to like get out there and make some really, really fast like driver swings if you're not doing like any type of overspeed training. And we'll talk about all that later. But, you know, that's also an element of, you know, strength and or power training.
Well, it's like running. It's like when, you know, you get these runners that want to learn how to run a faster half marathon or longer distance, but they've never pushed themselves on the track before. It's the same exact idea where it's like, have you ever pushed your threshold before? Do you ever go into the pain zone? Like, which is basically the same thing. I mean, swinging a golf club like really hard or your speed sticks really hard takes a lot of concentration and power, and it's exhausting.
And a lot of balance too. And yeah, you know, and that's the thing. Older people typically need more balance.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not necessarily like standing on a squishy ball or anything like that. It's, you know, just learning how to, like a squat is an example of like a balance exercise. It takes balance and coordination to do that. But one of the biggest reasons why we need that balance is that if our body is out of balance and we're swinging a golf club really fast, we could potentially fall over, but your brain's not really going to let that happen. Like your brain's going to realize like, hey, if I swing this out of control, I'm going to fall. So I'm just not going to do that. I'm just going to swing slower. Right. So we've got to train balance and your brain to swing faster. Right. And maybe like people listening to this aren't super into golf, but swinging the golf club fast is a big part of the game. Like hitting the ball farther is important for every golfer. And I meet a lot of people, you know, especially around like my age, maybe like 40, like, you know, just a couple years older than me, that say like, hey, you know, I already swing it well enough. I swing it fast enough. I don't really need more speed. And my thing is, if you have the ability to increase your club head speed right now, you should, because, you know, time is going to catch up to all of us, right? We're not escaping that. And it's going to come down. Your speed's going to come down. You're not going to swing. I'm not going to swing as fast as I do today in 20 years, 30 years, something like that. But maybe if I take my ceiling up higher now, that when I do land, come down in 20 years, 30 years, it's started higher and it won't be down as far. I still have the capacity to take it up right now. So we all should. And so yeah, that's kind of like what all of them need. Mobility, you know, some don't need as much mobility. You still want to like work on it, even if it is a strength of yours, you still want to work on your strengths. Like make your strengths stronger, right? There's nothing wrong with being mobile with control. There's a thing as being hyper mobile, but if you're strong and you can control your ranges of motion, that's awesome. And if you have more range of motion, you control more of that, and you're strong in all those ranges of motion, that's awesome. Being really strong is awesome. Like that is going to help your swing. It's going to help your life. And then being powerful, again, it's just going to help everything.
Yeah. So it's like, and for those of you that don't know, I mean, you sell programs, we sell Cody and Erika programs. So I think now would be a good time to kind of highlight a couple of those. I mean, you know, you have the golf foundations, which is probably for the majority of the people that we just kind of talked through. Maybe talk through a couple of those, like what offerings for each of your avatars would you recommend? Is Golf Foundations basically the place for people to start?
Yeah, Golf Foundation is a great place to start. We also have a mobility program. So if you do find yourself like really, really lacking mobility, it's got a self-assessment on there where you can go through, and I talk you through all these assessments, see exactly what's going on, and give you a mobility protocol to follow. But the Foundations is definitely, if you are new to the gym, that would definitely be the place to start. If you're a little more experienced athlete, the golf off season right now, we got a few more weeks of golf before like season starts. So that would be a great one if you're looking to develop a little more speed and power. If you already have a decent background in movements like, you know, squats and deadlifts and things like that. And then I created one that was kind of like a little passion project for me, because I do get some people reaching out to me that want to be that just like lifting weights. And they're kind of like me. Like I'm a fitness guy first, right? And I'm a golfer second. So, you know, sometimes I want to just lift weights, and I want it to help my golf game too, but it's not the most like golf specific looking program you're ever going to see, but it's helped my game tremendously. I mean, I've just been squatting and deadlifting and pressing and doing a few golf specific, and I'm doing air quotes, but a few golf specific exercises, and I've been crushing the ball. So
you just shot, what did you shoot, an 80?
I shot 79 a couple weeks
79.
ago.
Oh, okay.
I shot like an 87 yesterday.
Okay.
But it was a brand new course. Never played there before.
No, it's fair. It's
and I had to tee off in front of like 30 people, and it was a nerve-wracking experience. But
that's how I experience golf every time I tee off.
Yeah, but I actually had 30 people. You have like one.
Okay, well, just so you know, that's what it feels like. I know there's people listening, or one person if they're out there
Yeah.
that has been out on a golf course and the most nerve-wracking thing, especially your first time, like your first 2 times out in the real world with people that don't give a fuck about you. Obviously,
Right.
they don't, because nobody really gives a fuck about you. But
Mm-hmm.
you're just like, oh my God, there's other people that are just out here watching me be a complete doofus.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I'm here to represent the crowd that is super beginner to golf and maybe is just embarrassed to be out there sometimes. And it's just okay. I think it's just like showing up to the gym the first time when you're like, haven't been in a long time. And I just put myself in that headspace because I'm like, all right, well, everybody's new somewhere and nobody at the gym gives a fuck what you're doing. They're all worried about themselves, which is pretty true. And I feel like the golf course is the same way. Plus, everyone is not good on the golf course.
No, they're not. Not even close. Well, and I do like feel for you because, you know, being a woman, typically it's if there's 4 of us, 3 of us are men.
Yes.
And you have your own tee.
So it's like everyone has to separately go up and wait for the girl to hit her ball. And you can't like, and I'm not trying to hit the men's tee. I would in any other fucking sport, but I ain't trying to do that. Give me all the yards that I can.
Exactly.
Give me the extra 100. Sometimes it's like 30,000
sometimes it can be up there.
extra yards.
And sometimes you're like, yes, it's not over water.
Yeah, like usually when the women's one is in the front of the water. Such a breath of fresh air. Thank God.
Well, and I get the same treatment. Like I play from the back tees. So like when I'm with 3 other guys, like they have to stand at the bottom and like watch me, and like I'll hit a really shitty one every once in a while. And that's pretty embarrassing because like, oh, if you're playing from the back tees, you're supposed to be good, you know? So it goes both ways. But yeah, definitely yours is.
Sport.
It is a very interesting sport, but
anyway, well, I think that's a really good. I think you highlighted a lot of the I just keep calling them avatars, but I feel like you did a good job of kind of highlighting all of those. Your programs obviously are great, and I think like there is pretty much something out there for everybody, which is awesome. If you guys haven't checked out CodyWescottGolf.com or Cody Wescott Golf on Instagram, you can find his programs there. But yeah, I feel like that's probably good to wrap up this episode. I think everyone probably got a little taste of, hopefully, you know, there's a little bit of everybody in that episode as far as like their path on the golf fitness journey, or maybe you're just looking to get started. But yeah, hit up our programs.
And always reach out for questions. You know, I answer emails, direct messages.
Yes.
You know, yeah.
And I think going forward too, we would love to make our podcast a little more interactive as we build and as we continue to grow. So we will definitely be doing some sort of Q&A format, whether we're reaching out on Instagram or our newsletter, something like that. Get questions from people that they want answered.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.